All right, so the second part of this lick is a cool little jazzy kind of thing. It's really superimposing. So again, if he's playing in the key of B flat, the 5 chord of B flat would be an F dominant 7. So what he does at the second part, he's playing all this stuff basically around this A minor pentatonic with the 6th in it. Then he throws in this little arpeggio, which is suggesting that 5 chord basically, because it's an F major 6 arpeggio basically. So it's starting on the 5th fret of the G string, hammers on to the 7th fret of the G string, then the 6th fret of the B string. And actually, I think he hammers that on, and then he picks that 7th fret again to start a sweep picking. So that's 5th, 7 on the G string, then hit the 7th again and just slide down. If you're not familiar with sweep picking, you're just basically dropping the pick across the next 3 strings. So the G, B, and A. And that's the 7th fret on the G string, 6th fret on the B string, and 5th fret on the, G, B, and E. That's the 6th fret, 7th fret G string, 6th fret B string, 5th fret on the E string. So it's, and then you hammer on, actually I pick on an upstroke, the 8th fret on the E string. So that whole thing is and then here he just goes from the 6th fret to the 8th fret, pulls back down to the 6th fret to the 5th fret on the E string. So that whole thing together is. And then after he pulls off that, he goes down the 6th fret on both the B and the G string. Then he slides up to the 7th fret of the G string. And that's your minor third to major third again. So, and then he goes to the 6th fret of the B string. Now that arpeggio, again, if you look at just a F major chord, that first note is the 5th, the next note is the major 6th, and then you have the root. And then you have the major third, so it's the 5th, the major 6th, the root, the major third, and the 5th again of the F chord. But after you're playing it fits right in, even though in this scale you're really ended up using like the major 7th and then the 9th. It just works, and there's reasons for it, but I'm not going to bore you. All right, anyway, so the next section we'll get into next. All right, so the next part after that arpeggio, he gets into kind of like a scalular kind of run. And he's doing this pretty fast with that swing feel. For me, it's a little difficult. I had to really slow this down a bit because I'm not used to that swing kind of bop, bebop kind of thing. But anyway, so after that arpeggio, he goes up to the 6th fret of the B string, back down to the 5th fret of, or I'm sorry, back down to the 7th fret of the G string. So then he walks down a chromatic scale from 8, 7 to 6 on the B string. Then he does that typical blues kind of thing from 8 to 6 to 7, hammer on to the 7 of the G string, and that's the minor third to major third. So then he skips strings and goes to the 8th fret of the E string and pulls off to the 6th fret of the E string, and then he rolls down to the 6th fret of the B string. So it's that whole thing is. Then he starts just with a scale run. I'm sorry. So it's. That's what he does. So it's the 7th fret, 6th fret, I'm sorry, the 9th fret, 8th fret to the 6th fret of the B string, then to the 8th fret of the G string, then he goes down the scale starting on that 2nd note, which is the 8th fret to the 6th fret on the B string. So the whole thing is. And that last part is the 8th fret to the 6th fret, hammer on to the 7th fret of the D string, which is the same as what he did on the string above. Then he goes down a series of chords, and again, this is, if you're thinking of it in the key of B flat dominant, he's going from the 5th chromatically down, targeting the 4th. So that's F dominant 7 to a E flat dominant 7. And actually, before he does that, he slides up a half step with the major third shape, which is the 7th 7th fret A string, 6th fret of the D string, and you slide up a half step to the 8th fret of the A string and the 7th fret of the D string. And then he just kind of rings out those notes, which is your typical dominant 7 shape. 6th fret A string, 5th fret D string, 6th fret G string, and 4th fret on the B string. So that whole thing is. And if you're not familiar with that kind of thing, if you pick, picking different places in your bridge, like if you strum chords here, as opposed to, you hear how bright that is? So same thing when you're picking notes. Scott Henderson, a lot of guys do this. It's not just one person that has this amazing idea, but if you actually pick those notes a little higher, you can hear how tight that is, as opposed to picking down here. So if you want fatter notes, you can pick down here. If you want brighter tones, pick towards the bridge more. So that's what he does when he does these chords. Does something like that. And then the end of it is just a real typical, it's kind of reintroducing the beginning of the phrase. When he did that, but now he's doing, which all blues players kind of do. It's the 8th fret of the A string to the 5th fret of the D string, 8th fret of the D string. Then he does a hammer on from he bars the 6th fret of the G and the B string and hammers on the 7th fret of the G string while letting the other note ring together. So it's like this chord tone. Then you bar the 8th fret on both the G and the B string. So then you go back and do the same thing that you did before, barring the 6th fret, hammering on the 7th fret of the G string. So, and then there you slide down the 8th fret of both the D and A string. So, and then there you're just hitting the 6th fret of the A string, sliding down to the 5th fret of the A string, which is your 4th to major 3rd of that. That's the target note of the major 3rd of the chord, the B flat chord. So, and then he just does some kind of, I didn't really figure out what it was, but it's some kind of 11th chord, 13th chord. And that's it. So the whole lick goes like this. So that's it. That's the cool Josh Smith lesson. Yeah, I really like his playing. He's got such great dynamics in his playing, and you know, sometimes he plays like even that some simpler ideas where it's not crazy. He's not doing like weird chromatic jazz. I mean, he did a few chromatic notes, but he doesn't do anything too crazy. But it just sounds so good the way he plays it. So a good thing to do again is take that kind of lick now that you know how it works over a simple chord, and especially if you haven't used like arpeggios with your blues playing, realize that you could use, you know, any key that you're playing in, find the 5th of that key and play a major arpeggio off of that. And it's cool when you're playing over a chord to suggest other chords. It really makes the playing, the sound, the tonal range of what you're playing a lot greater. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Check out guitarbreakdown.com when you get a chance. It's going to be up and running. I've been saying this for a while, but I'm finishing my gig this week, and I'm really going to get into getting that up and running. I'm hoping that by the middle to end of summer, we have that one event that I'm trying to get going, and got a lot more lessons ahead. I hope you're enjoying it, and again, comment. Thumbs up, all that kind of stuff helps. If you haven't subscribed to us, please subscribe. If you really want to keep us doing this stuff, that lets us know that you like what we're doing. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next lesson.